my friends, it's your old pal Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? I hope you said great. I was really shocked when I found out that Bob Saget passed away in his hotel room in Orlando. And since we're in Los Angeles and he's buried here at Mount Sinai Cemetery, I want to go visit him. So today we're going to go visit the great Bob Saget. Daze with Jordan the Lion and the Joster begins now. Some of the other well-known people buried at Mount Sinai are Don Rickles, Mama Cass, the original Bozo the Clown. That is Mount Sinai right up here to the left of us. Mount Sinai is a Jewish cemetery. So right out here, overlooking the hills, is the grave of Robert L. Saget, Bob Saget. May 17th, 1956 to January 9th, 2022. Loving and devoted husband, father, son, uncle, brother, and friend. He brought people together and made them laugh. A very great man. Bob was an interesting guy. When you talk to people, when I talked to other comedians that knew Bob, nobody ever had a bad word to say about him. They said the dirtier joke you told him, the better. He loved that kind of stuff, even though he was, you know, well known for being clean-cut, all-American father on television and the host of America's Funniest Videos. He had a pretty blue sense of humor. Interesting, he grew up in Philadelphia, maybe that's where it started. His dad owned a grocery chain, and then they moved to Virginia for a while, and then back to Philadelphia, and then they moved out to California. They moved out towards Encino, and one of the first things he did, he was still in high school, he looked up Larry Fine of the Three Stooges and would go hang out with Larry and listen to Larry tell stories. Then the family moved, ended up going back east, and Bob went to Temple University, and he started doing stand-up and experimenting with stand-up while he was there. And then ended up, when he finished up school, was going to do a continuation at UCLA, and ended up having his appendix burst. He almost died. But he started doing stand-up again, and he would say on the Green Room TV show that he did stand-up in LA at the Improv and at the Comedy Store, hosting for like 8 years, never really getting a break, never really getting anything. And then he said Comedy Store regular Richard Pryor saw him and put him in his movie Critical Condition, and Bob said he was in that movie and then afterward never thought he would work again, said he wasn't really getting anything, and he said he and his wife were having their first child, and then he got an offer to be Danny Tanner on Full House because someone, the producer, had seen him in Critical Condition. And he was being joked with on that show by Patrice O'Neal, saying, Bob, you can't tell me that, you know, if you didn't have kids, you wouldn't have taken Full House or America's Funniest Videos, would you? I mean, because Patrice was making a point. He said, you know, Celebrity Fit Club comes to get me. If I have kids, I'm going to do it. If I don't have kids, I ain't doing it. And Bob said, you know, I did have a daughter by that point, but he said, I had been working in clubs and hosting for 8 years with nothing. He said, I just walked through the doors that were open for me, and I didn't push on the doors that weren't. And so he was known for being, you know, for several years, almost a decade, he played Danny Tanner on Full House. And he even jokes saying that, he goes, so yes, if you're asking me, would I do it again if I was presented? Yes, I would play the gay father of 3 girls. And Roseanne sitting next to him, she starts laughing. She said, you weren't gay on that show, were you? He said, well, I live with 2 men in a house in San Francisco. Nah, I wasn't. Like I said, he had a really, you know, like clean-cut image on the shows and on America's Funniest Videos, but if you saw his stand-up, he was not that way at all. He had a very dark sense of humor, and I think that's what I loved about him so much, is when he ended up on Entourage, because he showed that.
I just killed a guy at some crack den in the hood. Would you come down there in your silver 750 and pick me up and help me chop up the body and dispose of it, and then take me home and bathe me and then tuck me in? Would you do all that for me, Scotty? Because I would do that for me. Keep 10% of the money that I make. Bob. Shh. We're done now, Scott.
On Entourage, they depict Bob as just kind of like a scumbag, just always looking for new women, you know, total womanizer, always smoking pot, drinking and everything. And it was, I thought it was pretty funny. And then at the time, my next door neighbor was a film producer, but he also had was a partial owner in a club, and he invited me there one night. And I show up early because I didn't know. I showed up at like 10 o'clock. And pretty much the only people in the club were me and Bob Saget. And Bob Saget was there this before he was married. They were just kind of wandering around, you know, dancing by himself, hoping to meet someone. But then I saw him on Entourage and I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is so freaking funny. So I was really shocked, you know, and then they brought back a Fuller House. So he was, you know, Danny Tanner for like almost 10 years the first go round, and then they brought it back for like another 5 years. So he played Danny Tanner quite a bit. But I was so shocked when he was out doing his comedy tour and I heard that he had been found dead in his hotel room in Orlando. And I'm telling you, it didn't make sense then. It still doesn't make sense now. When he first passed, before we knew anything, I follow this woman on YouTube named Sloan Bella, and she kind of channels spirits. And I don't remember if it was literally the evening of when we found out he passed or the next evening, but she came on there and channeled Bob and said, I'm telling you right now, this wasn't an accident. He's telling me he was murdered. And so when he was found, you know, the official closed case was that he had an unwitnessed fall and that he had died of blunt force trauma, but it just doesn't make any sense. He did a comedy show, you know, if it happened, it had to happen in his hotel room, because he did a comedy show and then went back to his hotel, held like a 10-minute conversation with the parking valet guy and even took a photo with him. And then the security cameras show him going, you know, scanning his card, going up to his room. His room was all the way at the end of the hall. He walks all the way down there. He's not, you know, staggering or anything out of the ordinary. He goes in his room. Then 10 minutes later, he comes out and puts his do not disturb sign on. And then at 3:43-ish a.m., he posts a photo on his social media saying that he's addicted to comedy again and that he loves it. And it's a picture of him at the comedy club he had performed at. So that was the last time anybody had heard from Bob. And then when he didn't wake up, police went into his room and found him laying in bed with one arm draped across his chest, one beside him. And he had black eyes, and they found that he basically had damage from the back of his head all the way around to the front, and that's what blacked out his eyes. And the bones around the eyes, for those to be broken, immediately people started, once this came out, people online that were doctors and stuff started saying these injuries cannot happen without being either on a motorcycle crash, being hit by a car, or someone severely beating you. I mean, there's just no way. And then, even though the case is closed and it's all just, I mean, they've just accepted that, you know, as I said, that they say it was an unwitnessed fall. Even though all that, then they find out, and it's revealed later, that surveillance doesn't show anyone entering his room in the evening or scanning a card, but his room was an adjoining room, and the door to the adjoining room was unlocked. They don't have evidence that anyone scanned and went in there, but who knows? I mean, somebody could have went in there earlier, waited. Who knows? I mean, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. And then, you know, of course, because, like I said, he had a really blue sense of humor. And, you know, I've known a lot of comedians that have that sense of humor. And to them, nothing's off limits. I mean, when they make a joke, it's like the further out that they can go, the funnier the joke is sometimes. So people started accusing him of being part of like this dark underworld or whatever because of some of the jokes. But I think where those all those jokes came from were just the fact that his image was so squeaky clean and clean cut that people that went to see his stand-up, if they didn't do their homework first and they walked in thinking they were getting Danny Tanner, they got a rude awakening along with their show because he was very dirty. And I mean, you know, he did funny stuff. He would bring a guitar on stage and he would sing and do a song. And even in the early days, he would perform the Beatles' While My Guitar Gently Weeps and use a water bottle to make his guitar cry. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really, you know, I don't know what really happened, but I just don't think it's what we're told. I don't for a minute think that he had a fall. You know, if he had that fall, it would have had to have been after he posted the photo of himself on social media, because his grammar and everything, his spelling, everything is okay. It's nothing out of the ordinary. And there was, you know, for as much damage there was done to him, there was no, nothing disarrayed in the room, nothing out of the ordinary, no blood, nothing. Bob, I hope, you know, I hope someday that you get justice. I hope that we find out, because this just to me eerily smells like the Anthony Bourdain death, where we're told that he did it, but I've just never believed that. I have never bought into that. I think someone assisted, and I think in this case there's more to the story than we know. But I thought the guy was hilarious. I really did. Like I said, when I saw him on Entourage, I was just blown away because he was so polar opposite. Like they purposely made him to be as raunchy and as, I don't know, just almost like a modern day Hugh Hefner on the show. And I just thought that was such a departure from Danny Tanner that I liked it. Rest in peace, Bob. 65 years was too young. I don't know if his wife will be, if she's planning to be buried here or not. This is his, and there are some spaces here. I kind of expected him to have one of these little niche type graves or whatever, but no, very humble grave right here. Danny Tanner also was the narrator for How I Met Your Mother. Well, my friends, we're going to call it a day. Thank you all for watching. Rest in peace, Bob Saget. We'll see you all in our next adventure. Goodbye.